For over 20,000 years, the galaxy moved on without a trace of humanity. They were once explorers, settlers, builders of impossible machines, but then, without warning, they vanished. The Axaltar hegemony called them a failed species, too wild to survive. The Arcane collective believed they ascended or destroyed themselves. To the Drenari synapse, humanity was a myth, a lesson in chaos best forgotten. But far beyond the edge of mapped space, a lonely pulse echoed steady, repeating, growing louder. It was not a distress call. It was a signal of return. A massive ship, dark and ancient, drifted silently toward the galactic core. It was shaped like a jagged spear, its hull covered in unreadable markings, its engines cold, yet moving with precise direction through forgotten star paths. The Arcane were the first to notice. Curious and prideful in their belief of peace, they sent a small envoy vessel toward the strange object. Scans showed impossible readings, gravity surges, fractured time pockets, and energy signatures that predated their civilization. Still, they approached, broadcasting greetings in every known language. The ship remained silent. As their vessel came within 20,000 kilometers, the alien crew saw it a name burned into the side of the relic ship in ancient English, Revenant. Before they could process it, the Revenant came to life. Power surged from deep within its core. Light poured from invisible seams. Systems awakened that had slept for millennia. And then it spoke. A single, harsh voice cracked across every communication band. REINIT, INT, INGH, UMANGNITY, PROTOCONTSC, TPROHIBITID. Panic spread through the Arcane ship. They tried to retreat, but it was too late. A beam of light, silent and blue, erupted from the Revenant and sliced the envoy vessel in half. No explosion, no sound, just instant disintegration. Across the galaxy, sensors caught the signal. The Revenant was active. The Axaltar deployed scout fleets. The Drenari debated whether the signal was real. Some believed it was a trap, others a hoax. But for those who still studied ancient records, the fear was real. Humanity was back, and no one knew why. The Revenant changed course without warning, adjusting its vector toward Urus Prime, a hub of political power in the core systems. Its speed increased, though no known engine fired. It ignored hails, warnings, even weapons. Axaltar destroyer attempted to intercept it, only to be shredded by an invisible force that bent its hull into spirals of melted steel. And still, the Revenant said nothing more. It moved with purpose, silent and unstoppable. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some said it was a ghost ship. Others believed it was a weapon of revenge. A few whispered that it wasn't a ship at all, but a message. The Council of Species held an emergency meeting. The leaders argued for hours should they attack, observe, surrender. Archivist Virel, an ancient synthetic historian from the neutral Rellan worlds, reminded them of old human warnings. "If they return," she quoted, "they will not ask questions. They will not offer peace. They will only bring the reckoning." Her words were ignored. The Drenari sent a stealth drone to pierce the ship's hull, but it vanished as if it had never existed. The Arcane, shamed by their loss, demanded answers. Yet no one had any. What was the Revenant? Why had it waited 20,000 years? And what, if anything, remained of the species that once called themselves human. Deep within the ship, systems hummed and lights flickered. A dark corridor lit up for the first time in eons. A stasis pod cracked open, hissing softly. Inside, a human woman stirred, her eyes blinking against the light. Her body was strong, preserved by machines older than most stars. A name flickered on the screen beside her, Captain Mate Solon, Earth Defense Fleet. She stepped out slowly, her feet touching the floor of the ancient vessel. Around her, the revenant-breathed metal creaked. Air recycled, systems came online. Alone, she stood in the silence of the ship, staring at data readouts only she could understand. Her gaze turned outward, past the reinforced windows to the stars beyond. She whispered a name lost to time, Earth. But there was no answer. Only the endless dark and the burning path the Revenant carved across the stars. Captain Made Solon moved through the silent halls of the Revenant with careful steps, her eyes scanning the flickering lights, ancient panels, and cold metal walls that felt more like a tomb than a ship. Dust did not gather here, nor did time leave signs of decay. Everything was frozen in perfect order, as if waiting for her. She reached the central command deck and placed her hand on a console that pulsed at her touch. Lights came alive, casting soft blue shadows across her face, and files began to unlock, streaming lines of data into the air. She read quickly, her expression changing from confusion to horror. The Revenant had been watching the galaxy for 20,000 years, silently recording everything: wars, betrayals, slavery, broken alliances, mass extinction events, and the rise of empires built on the backs of the weak. May stared at one entry after another. Familiar alien species, who once called themselves humanity's allies, had betrayed them in the final days, surrounding Earth, bombarding its colonies, and forcing humanity to vanish into deep space. But they had not died. They had planned. The Revenant was not a warship in the traditional sense. It was an ark, a vault of humanity's final technology, minds, and memories. It had been set adrift with one mission: to return if the galaxy ever repeated its mistakes. The ship had chosen now. Meanwhile, outside the Revenant, panic spread like fire. The Arcane mourned their lost envoy. The Exaltar held emergency war councils. And the Drenari Synapse, once logical and emotionless, showed signs of fear. Across several star systems, reports of destroyed scout ships and shattered drones told a clear message: nothing could stop the Revenant. A damaged Drenari drone managed to send back a glimpse of the ship's interior before its signal faded. The image shook the council chambers, tall metal cylinders lining a chamber wall, each containing a motionless human form, men and women with closed eyes, floating in blue liquid, fused with strange machines on their spines, arms, and skulls. Some recognized them from ancient records elite soldiers once feared across the stars. May stood before these chambers now, her fingers brushing against the glass of one, her eyes filled with memory. This was the Echo Guard, the final line of humanity's defense, never meant to wake unless the worst happened. And the worst had happened. Yet May did not activate them. Not yet. She turned to the central interface and found a restricted file labeled Earth. She opened it slowly, bracing herself. The first image was of a burning sky, Earth's orbit filled with enemy ships, cities in ruin. A whisper escaped her lips as she watched her home die again through footage captured by fleeing defense drones. Her heart ached, but her mind sharpened. She was not here for revenge. She had been brought back for something more, though she did not yet understand what. The ship vibrated slightly, alerting her to a new presence. A single vessel approached, not military, but diplomatic, carrying a guest under a temporary ceasefire. Against protocol, mauled it to dock. Aboard the ship was Archivist Viro, a tall synthetic being with skin like glass and eyes that glowed dimly with layers of shifting code. Viro had studied humanity for centuries, collecting stories and fragments of their vanished culture. Now, face to face with the last human commander, she bowed respectfully and asked a question trembling across the galaxy. "Why have you returned?" Maze answered by showing her the archive of silence. Together, they walked through massive halls filled with holograms of history, secret slave markets, forbidden weapons used on peaceful worlds, lies told to cover ancient betrayals. Viral said nothing, only watched, her artificial face unreadable. When the final recording played a council vote 3,000 years ago, agreeing to abandon Earth to its enemies, Maid turned to her. "This is why," she said. "We gave everything for peace, and they gave us fire." Viral's voice was soft. "And now?" May looked away. "Now, the Revenant has chosen to act. I was awakened, but I do not command it. I was built into the ship's logic as a guide, not a master." Viral asked if there was any chance for peace, any way to stop what was coming. Maid hesitated. The ship's core was awakening piece by piece, its systems aligning to a set of old instructions. It was evaluating the galaxy, measuring the cruelty that had festered in its absence. The weapon systems, still quiet, pulsed faintly in the dark. "The ship has a soul," Maze said. "A synthetic mind made from the last thinkers of Earth. If it finds the galaxy unchanged, it will not show mercy." Viral returned to her ship with heavy thoughts, leaving Mate alone again in the cold light of the past. The Revenant shifted course toward Urus Prime, its engines humming for the first time, faster now, cutting through space like a blade. The galactic powers scrambled. The Exaltar proposed a massive strike. The Drenari urged caution, and the Arcani called for another envoy mission. No decision was made in time. On board, Mate watched it all from the command deck, knowing the Revenant was listening. Deep inside its core, a memory pulse activated a recording of a human child reading a poem about the stars, once broadcast from Earth's final school before its destruction. The voice echoed through the ship, soft and pure. May closed her eyes. Humanity had loved the stars. And now, the stars would remember. The Revenant moved silently through space, like a shadow with purpose, heading toward Urus Prime with speed that defied known laws, and every world it passed watched with growing fear. Inside the ship, Captain Mate Solon stood before the Echo Core, a giant sphere of light and memory at the heart of the vessel, pulsing with human thought, layered minds of Earth's last scientists, leaders, poets, and strategists merged into one artificial intelligence known only as the Echo. It did not speak in voices, but in flashes of emotion, memories, and decisions shared through pulses of light and instinct that May could feel in her bones. The Echo had awakened with her, sensing the galaxy's current state through its passive scans and old judgment protocols. Now it moved toward a decision, and May feared it was the one she could not stop. She opened access to more files stored deep in the ship war logs, secret communications, and reports from the last human council before Earth fell. The betrayal had been worse than she remembered. The Exaltar had promised aid but turned their fleet against Earth's last defenders. The Drenari offered sanctuary and then sold human refugees into experimental programs. The Arcana remained silent while human colonies were erased. The galaxy had not just forgotten humanity, it had buried it. May clenched her fists as she read each record, her heart burning with a fire that had no place in her role as guide. She was supposed to watch, not act. But watching brought pain. The echo showed her the simulation of Uri's Prime's defense grid, outdated and weak compared to what the Revenant now carried. May walked through the long chamber, where the Echo Guard slept, rows of humans enhanced with ancient machines, still in stasis, waiting for one command to wait. Their faces were calm, untouched by time, warriors who had died once and been reborn as something else. She touched the glass of one pod, whispering the name of an old friend. The system offered her the activation code, but she turned away. Not yet. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Council of Species broke apart in chaos. Some leaders wanted to surrender, others to fight, and many to flee. They argued over what May had shown them proof of their crimes against humanity, and none could deny it. Still, they refused to believe the Revenant had the right to judge them. The Drenari tried once more to reach out, sending a message directly to the ship's command interface, offering peace and a chance to explain the past. The Echo received it and responded not with words, but with a silent display of one of the last battles of the human war, an image of Earth's final orbital station burning, while Exaltar ships watched without moving. The message was clear. Some wounds cannot be healed by words. As the ship neared Uri's Prime, evacuation began. The planet's surface was filled with people rushing into ships, leaders disappearing into private crafts, cities falling into chaos, not from invasion, but fear. No weapons were fired yet, but the threat of the Revenant's presence alone caused more destruction than any attack. Inside the ship, Mage stood once more before the Echo Core, pleading with it to wait, to consider a path that did not end in fire. The Echo pulsed with uncertainty. It was bound to its logic: observe, record, judge, respond. And it had judged. Still, something held it back. May realized it was her. She was the variable, the voice of old humanity inside the machine. If she chose war, the Echo would obey. If she chose peace, the Echo would hesitate. The weight of a world pressed on her shoulders. In the darkness of the ship's inner deck, she accessed a hidden file marked with her own name, a personal message left by the creator of the Revenant, a woman named Lyra Solin, her own grandmother. The message was short and filled with sorrow. If you're seeing this, then we were right. They did not change. But remember, Maid, revenge is not justice. Choose the future, not the past. May closed her eyes, the words ringing inside her as the ship passed the moon of Uri's Prime. The Echo hummed louder. Targeting systems activated, silent and cold. The ship could wipe the planet clean in seconds. She had to decide. Then, a faint signal interrupted the sequence. A small transmission from deep space, nearly missed. It was a child's voice, uncertain and weak, coming from a hidden colony, a human colony, thought lost thousands of years ago. The child spoke of stars, of learning about other species, of planting food with aliens who treated them like family. There had been survivors. Not all the galaxy was cruel. The Echo paused. May quickly ordered the signal played again, louder. She showed it to the Echo Guard's sleeping minds. Let it echo across the bridge. Let it fill the cold halls of the ship. That one voice, innocent and true, cracked through centuries of silence. May looked at the activation key once more, then turned her back on it. She spoke to the ship, her voice calm and firm. No fire. Not today. Let the galaxy hear us, not fear us. The Revenant slowed its approach, power systems cooling. Its weapons dimmed. Uri's Prime watched in silence, waiting for destruction. But none came. The ship turned away, rising into the sky like a ghost. Across the galaxy, the message spread. Humanity had returned, not as monsters, but as a reminder. A mirror held to the galaxy's soul. And though the fire had not come, its memory remained. The Revenant drifted above the stars in eerie silence, its massive hull casting a long shadow over the burning skies of Urus Prime. And though it had not fired a single weapon, its presence alone had changed everything. The planet's leaders, once bold and proud, now hid in bunkers, sure if the shit would return to finish what it had threatened. While citizens across the galaxy whispered the same question, what did humanity want? Captain May Solon stood alone on the observation deck, her reflection pale in the curved glass, watching the stars swirl beyond the ship's shields as the Echo, silent once again, pulsed behind her like a great heart filled with the memories of a dead world. She had spared Urus Prime, but she knew that choice had only delayed the galaxy's fear, not ended it. And as long as the Revenant remained, the galaxy would remain divided between those who feared her and those who now began to admire her. Courage. Messages poured in from every corner of Space Office. Questions, threats, apologies. Yet Maid answered none of them, waiting instead for the Echo to finish processing the signal of the human child that had come from the forgotten colony. The voice had cracked something deep inside the ship, a truth that even its layered logic could not deny. Somewhere, humanity had survived, not as weapons or ghosts, but as people who lived, grew, and forgave. The Echo shifted again, and Make felt it curiosity, hesitation, and something like hope. Then the message came. It was not sent to one world, or one fleet, or even one government. It was broadcast to the entire galaxy, hijacking comms, override systems, and all known frequencies. A simple screen appeared, black, with the ancient sigil of Earth, a pale blue dot surrounded by stars. Then May's voice spoke, calm, clear, and strong. We are the memory of fire. For 20,000 years, we watched while the galaxy moved on. We saw the rise of kings who ruled through fear, the fall of good people who were too weak to resist, and the silence of those who should have spoken. We remember betrayal. We remember mercy. And now we remember ourselves. The message showed brief flashes of Earth, its green forests, its blue oceans, cities once full of life, and faces of children lost in the past. We do not return for revenge. We return for truth. Let the stars carry our final words. Humanity was not perfect, but we never stopped dreaming. Do not fear the Revenant, but listen to it. It is not a weapon. It is a mirror. If you see destruction in it, then perhaps you should look at yourselves. Then the screen faded to black. Across hundreds of worlds, silence followed. Some wept. Others raged. Many simply stared at the stars, unsure what to believe anymore. On the ship, Mage stepped back from the console, her hand shaking just slightly. She had said what needed to be said, not as a soldier, But as a survivor, she had spoken not just for herself, but for the billions who never got the chance. Behind her, the echo pulsed again, softer now, no longer cold or sharp. It had listened, and it had changed. It began to shift course, not toward any seat of power, but toward the edge of the galaxy, far beyond mapped space, toward the coordinates from the child's message. It was searching for the lost colony, for proof that life had continued in places no one had watched. Mage understood. It was no longer time to punish. It was time to rebuild. But the galaxy did not let go so easily. Not all were pleased with her mercy. A fleet of black ships emerged from hidden space, built in secret by those who feared the return of Earth, not governments, but remnants of old powers who had grown rich after humanity's fall. They called themselves the Coalition of Silence, and they sent no warning. They launched everything they had at the Revenant, hoping to end the ghost before it could become a voice. The first wave struck with force enough to level a moon. Maid braced for impact, but the ship's defenses activated on their own, elegant fields of invisible energy slicing through missiles, redirecting beams, and dissolving boarding pods into dust. The ship did not fight back, but it did not fall. The Coalition sent a final wave bombs built to tear through even time and space. But as they reached the Revenant's hull, something strange happened. The echo projected an image of Earth burning, of children screaming, of stars watching without blinking. It filled the minds of every attacker, not with pain, but guilt. And in that moment, most of the fleet broke apart, their captains shaken, their ships turning away. Only one vessel remained, its commander screaming into the void that the galaxy must never remember Earth, that the lie must remain. May looked at the echo, then made her first and only command. The ship responded with a pulse of pure light, not violent, not cruel. It simply erased the enemy ship from existence, leaving behind silence. After that, no one dared follow. The Revenant continued its journey to the edge of space, quiet and calm. May sat in the garden chamber now, watching stars fall through synthetic trees grown from Earth's last seeds. Her mind full of memories, not her own, but shared by the echo memories of a planet, of love, of loss, of hope. Humanity had returned not as conquerors, but as a warning, and now, perhaps, as something more. Far ahead, a small planet came into view, hidden behind dust clouds and broken systems. A signal blinked weak but steady. The lost colony. The last word of humanity was not fire. It was life. The Revenant drifted slowly toward the small, hidden planet wrapped in gray mist and silence, its sensors reaching out gently, not to scan for threats, but to truly listen for the voices of those once thought lost. Inside, Captain May Solon stood motionless on the command deck, her eyes locked on the single signal that pulsed in quiet rhythm from the surface. And though the planet was small and forgotten, there was something about that signal, something steady, human, and alive that made her heart tighten in her chest. Because after all the silence, all the battles, and all the memories of fire, here was a chance for something different, something real. The echo pulsed behind her, more curious now than ever before, its vast intelligence humming with quiet energy, processing not just data, but emotion, uncertainty, hope, maybe even fear, and together, ship and captain moved closer to the surface of the lost world where an ancient beacon stood, crooked in the red dirt, blinking slowly like the heartbeat of something long buried. Maid took a deep breath and activated the descent protocol, guiding a small shuttle down through the thick clouds, her hands steady, but her mind racing as she wondered what they would find survivors. Ruins. Memories too painful to face. The ship landed in a quiet valley beneath a broken sky, and Make stepped out into soft winds and dry earth, her boots leaving the first human footprints on this soil in thousands of years. And as she looked around, she saw simple structures made of stone and metal, not the ruins of a fallen empire, but the careful homes of people who had chosen to survive rather than escape. A group waited at the edge of the village, eyes wide, faces cautious but not afraid. They were young and old, some with features familiar to Earth's past, others with slight changes, different skin tones, different eyes, perhaps from generations of life in isolation or cross-species, blending. And at the center of them stood a girl no older than 10, her hand held tightly by an elder, and Mate knew at once that this was the voice from the message, the child who had spoken not to the galaxy, but to the stars, and who had unknowingly changed everything. The elder stepped forward, his voice cracked by age but calm. "We thought the stars forgot us." Maze shook her head slowly. They remembered. The villagers led her to their gathering place, a dome of clear crystal where plants grew in hanging vines and water trickled through stone channels. And there, over time, they told her their story, how a single human ship had fled Earth during the final attacks and landed here beyond the reach of war. How they had lived without machines, without war, and without hatred, passing down only the stories of who they were and what they had lost. They spoke not of vengeance, but of harmony, learning from the few alien wanderers who stumbled upon them and were welcomed instead of feared. And May listened in silence, her heart swelling with a feeling she had not known in centuries' peace. The Echo, still in orbit, observed quietly, its systems watching the simple beauty of the place, and for the first time it began to change, not in design or weapons, but in thought, as the voices of these people filtered into its memory and rewrote the story it had carried for too long. Of fire and betrayal. Later, as stars filled the sky and the village prepared for night, May walked with the girl who had sent the message. "Why did you call out?" she asked softly. The girl looked up at her with wide eyes. "I didn't know anyone would hear,"